Oh, okay. So we're live. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, good. So we're a few minutes in. Thank you, Dina. I told you we were going to be a little bit of a greenhorn. All right. So everybody, thank you and welcome to Get Your Green On. This is put together by the Charlotte RDI chapter. And this is really a follow-up to an event we had a few weeks ago where we invited everybody to join us at Houseplant. And we learned a lot about how to put together different arrangements of succulents and plants. And as a follow-up to Earth Day, we wanted to invite three of our esteemed panelists that are here today to share with you their passions for what they do, and hopefully through the Q&A, learn a few things about how to green your spaces a little bit better, whether indoors or outdoors. So I'm going to start with Yijing An. She comes from Gensler, and Yijing, you've been there for what, about 4 years?
Yes, 4 years, almost.
Excellent. If there's one thing you want to share with the panel in terms of introductory terms, what would you like to share with them?
So just a little bit about myself. I am a technical designer at Gensler, but today the real reason I'm here is because I'm a home gardener as well as a succulent hobbyist. That's how I refer to myself. I also prepared some presentation later that I want to show you guys all my little collection of the succulents, but I'm also gonna talk about my experience on growing succulents out, as well as some of the frequent questions that I always get asked too. So hopefully I can share some experience with you guys and then you learn from it.
Great, excellent. We also have Casey Cline. Casey comes from Little. And Casey's been at Little for about 8 years. And as you can see from her resume, she's the landscape architect. So Casey, anything you want to share with the group?
Yeah, so I recently got licensed as a landscape architect, but my undergraduate degree is in landscape design and horticulture. And I am also a home landscape, create what you may, experiment, get your hands dirty, and just see what happens. I mean, so yeah.
That's great. And last but least, we have Henk Westerduin. And did I pronounce your last name all right?
Yeah, that's good. You got it about as good as anybody does. Perfect. I'll take it.
All right, good. And you're with Sweet Plants. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Henk.
Yeah. So actually, Henk's my dad. I'm Eric.
I'm sorry, Eric.
No, you're all good. You got the last name, so that's what counts. My dad and I started this company together about 9 years ago. My dad is Dutch, and so half my family still lives over there. We were actually visiting Holland, 9 years ago. Saw a lot of living green walls there, and offices, airports, hotels, that kind of stuff. And we were both kind of taken aback by how cool and interesting it made the spaces. And at the time, we were both thinking about what our next career move was going to be, and we decided to start this business together. And we've been for the almost the last decade now bringing nature indoors, specifically in a lot more kind of hotels, offices, airports, that kind of stuff. A lot of public spaces, some residential, but anything green and vertical, that's what we do, whether it's living or artificial or even moss.
All right, and then I'm going to do a couple of icebreaker questions. So it's going to be rapid fire, so don't contemplate the answer too quickly. But so I'm going to go with first, what's your favorite summer drink or cocktail? Casey.
Margarita with lots of salt.
Eric.
I have to go basic, go pina colada. There's nothing like, if you're on a beach, you have to have one of those. It kind of seals the vacation right there. You're like, I'm definitely on a beach.
All right, Yijing, what do you think?
Okay, you'll be surprised. Mine is orange juice. I don't drink alcohol.
Orange juice.
I'm a weirdo.
Okay, good. No, that's okay. It was a summer drink or cocktail, so that's a summer drink. Mm-hmm. All right, favorite place to hide away or recharge? Yijing, I'll start with you.
Greenhouse or nursery. Anything that with green plants.
Great. Eric.
I actually do a lot of road biking, cycling. So I'd say a nice long bike ride outside definitely focuses and clears the mind.
All right, Casey, I know your answer.
You already know. Mine's similar to Eric's. Any greenway. I'm a big runner, so if I can dip out on a greenway and get lost, that's my style.
That's great. How about one item on your bucket list, Casey?
So tying in with the runner, I want to run the Big 6 marathon. So I've ran 3 of the 6.
Wow. Trifecta and trifecta. Eric.
Ooh, I'd say after the last year, just general bucket list to travel again. It'd be nice to,
There you go.
get
There you go.
outside of kind of my home territory again.
Sure. Keep it simple. How about you, Yijing?
Mine is about travel too. I want to go to see the Northern Lights.
Northern Lights. Oh, wow. That would be spectacular. All right. Casey, beach or mountain?
As long as there's water. So,
Good. Eric.
But if you've got a mountain with a lake, we're good.
All right. How you be, Eric?
Oh, I like that gray area, mountain with a lake. I'm taking beach. Why not?
Beach. Yijing?
I'm taking beach as well.
All right, good. Sand on toes on sand. All right, well, that's it for the icebreakers. That just wanted to give you a little bit of a warm up. Let's get straight to the topic. Any of you can answer at any time, right? This is really, I've got some questions to sort of drive the conversation, but you guys probably have read some of these. The opportunity here is really to share your expertise, your passion about what you do, and really inform the folks who are attending the meeting today. Let's start with, what is your favorite outdoor or tree plant? Casey, and just you can elaborate a little bit about why you picked that one.
So I like the lace bark elm one because it's got exfoliating bark and it's got like a red texture underneath. And then I have always been fascinated with hellebore. They've got these little croquettes, the kind of flowers that open up, and it's early spring and it just says, summer's coming.
All right, Yijing.
So when I first see this question, I think I have lots of trees that I hope I can get my hands on one day. But the one that I pick is the red point maple. So the thing that I really like about that tree is it seems to color up earlier in the fall, and they also drop all their leaves at the same week. So I'm a tidy person. I garden, like I can't stand with bunch of leaves in my yard like all day or all week. So I have to keep it clean. So that red point maple is like the go-to tree for me because it's not a prolonged clean time for me. It's once and done in fall. So I love that tree.
Good. How about you, Eric?
Just I guess I'd go with, we use a lot of ivy actually in a lot of our products, and it's been fun to work with. Just kind of we train it into fences and stuff like that, and can make kind of green vertical panels. And so I'd say one of the things that, maybe back to the bucket list question, is that, and it's, been a slow process over 9 years, but I started out not knowing anything about plants and knowing a lot about technical systems. And so I've been learning more about plants. But yeah, love what we do with ivy. So it's been fun to work with.
That's great. This is a question for everybody. Could you pinpoint a moment in your past, where that was sort of critical in, making a path for your passion today, either a childhood memory or a trip to the mountains or something that happened in your past that really sort of was an originator, right? Something that propelled you in the direction that you are today, an event perhaps. Casey, I'll start with you. So you guys can interject.
Growing up, I was fascinated with Legos, and I always thought that I wanted to be an architect. But I didn't realize what I was doing was I was actually space planning and creating like little small cities and telling people where to go and where to live and creating these actually master plans. And so when I got to school, I started off in architecture and then realized landscape architecture was a thing. But also my mom's an interior designer and my dad's a landscape contractor. So here I am.
Yeah, it seems like a natural byproduct of what your mom and your dad do. That's great. Who wants to go next, Eric or Yijing?
I'll just throw mine in. I think I gave it away a little bit in the earlier answers, but it was a trip with my dad to Holland, and we stayed in a hotel in Amsterdam, and kind of in the lobby area they had a big green wall there, and I had never seen anything like that before, and so I was impressed by it and thought it made the space so warm and inviting and unique. And that was kind of the planted the seed for me that wow, this is really cool. Sure. I wish we could see more of this in the US, and led me down this path.
Hey, follow-up question to you, Eric. I'm curious. So you say you've been doing this for about 9 years, or this event happened 9 years ago. What were you doing before?
I was actually, I was doing investment banking in New York City. I was doing mergers and acquisitions for food and beverage companies. So I was not in, plants or, architecture or anything like that. And it just happened to be, it just kind of, like I said, saw this green wall. I was like, wow, that's really cool. We need more of that in the US. And it just led us down this path of just being kind of inquisitive about like, how do you even make one of those? What goes into it? Like where, who makes these things? Why don't we have more of them in the US? And doing that along with my dad. And we kind of got to that moment of, digging into it enough to say like, why can't we do it? Why can't we be the people that bring it to the US? And and so here we are.
There you are.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for the background. Yijing, how about you?
So for me, I think it's really a photo of succulents. So I still can remember how that photo looks like. It's in a small balcony, but it's full of bright red color succulents. I was shocked by that time because I was just a student, I remember. And then all the succulents that I see on the market are greenish. Like they are either green or like a dark purple, but I've never seen such a bright color succulent somewhere like near me. So I was shocked by that time, and I started to research all of these the information online, and I find there's actually ways that can manage the color of the succulent, and then that brings my interesting and that excites me, and that's how I started to grow succulents.
That's great. That's great. I know you have a few portrait photos of succulents, your favorite succulents that you've we're going to share. So at some point, it'll be great to put some visuals in there for the audience.
Yeah.
Another general question, tell me what you enjoy the most about what you do regarding, sort of the greening on of spaces, whether they're interiors or exteriors. Obviously, Eric, what you do is probably mostly, well, not necessarily. I mean, I've seen some exterior green walls and interiors green walls, so they're both in and out. And succulents, their natural habitats is obviously outdoors. We just brought them in because that's where we spend our time. So tell me about what is it that you enjoy the most? It could be sharing information with others or greening spaces, etc. And since you were last, Yijing, I'll start with you.
Okay, yeah. So I'm a home gardener too, so I grow other greens, but over the years, I find myself still falling in love with succulents so much. It's because I see the succulent by growing succulents, you will never know how well it perform in spring and fall. It's not like growing, let's say roses. It's a red rose, and then every spring it's just gonna come back in spring and then grow, blooming red. But for succulents, it's false. It's not the truth. So it's all about how you control the microclimate around it, whether you put it inside or you put it outside in a sunnier space. It is going to perform differently. And the fact that it is such a small plant, and you can keep it in a pot and then move it like easily. It's so easy to manipulate the microclimate around it, and then that gives it so much potential. Like, what if I do this? What if I give it more sun this year? What if I change the recipe of the soil this year? What if I do this and that? And then see the result of it. You know what I mean? Just by playing the different parameter around it and then see how it achieves in spring and summer. That's what excites me the most. In this area.
It just occurred to me that, at least the way you guys are on my screen, Casey, what you deal with, mostly requires, a lot of soil and other water. Eric, what you do, it might be less controlled. And Yijing, I mean, pretty much atmospheric moisture and a little bit of dirt. They pretty much can live on the bark of a tree, right? So it's a nice way that we have sort of in a water table organized the conversation. How about the rest of you guys? What is it that brings you to work every day and you're enthusiastic about sharing with others?
I'll go. I mean, mine is just like my favorite moment is, whether it's hotel or, you know, office lobby or a retail store is to go, you know, either, you know, the opening or shortly thereafter of the space and just see people's reaction. And I love that, you know, we'll see, you know, we're often part of a large, you know, architectural project, and our green wall is just one small piece of a whole building. But just to see people go in and it's something that they immediately gravitate towards, and you'll see so many people just interacting with the wall, touching it, taking pictures in front of it, taking pictures of it. And so it's a, you know, it's interesting to see that, yeah, we're a small part of these projects, but we often end up like kind of a high traffic focal point interaction with, you know, whether it's employees in an office building or, you know, clients in a retail space. You know, and it's fun for me to see like, okay, people actually take notice of what we're doing. And sometimes I forget, like, it's what I do every day. And so it's normal to me, or I see a lot of it, but in reality, we're still, you know, green walls. It's still such a small, tiny niche. And it's, you know, probably one out of 100 building projects that, you know, or probably even far less than that incorporates, you know, a green wall. So for most average people, they don't see them that often. And so it's still kind of fun for me to see when, you know, people see it for the first time, and just that sort of reaction.
That's great.
Makes all the hard work worth it.
I have a follow-up question, Eric. In terms of scale, what is the smallest one you've installed, and where's the largest one you've installed, and whether they're interiors or exteriors? Could you share that with the audience?
Yeah. So smallest, you know, we have like some products that it's almost like a living picture frame. It's like a picture frame that has plants growing out of it, and we call those our live picture. Those are probably the smallest, and those, you know, we've sold all over the world in both, you know, kind of commercial and residential. On the largest, I have to think exactly what the largest one we've done to date. I can think of a few. We did an exterior project in Belgium for a Nike distribution center that was fairly large. But in the US, actually, in all places, it was, I believe in Columbus, Ohio, is still our largest project. And it's 2 freestanding living walls that are 2 stories tall in an interior atrium of an office building. And the architect's vision was you have escalators going up from like the first floor to a mezzanine, and they wanted it almost like to look like boxwood hedges along the edge of the, but, you know, 30 something feet tall and then 4-sided. It was a really, really intricate, unique project. Took a lot of time, but very cool. I think it ended up being like, I want to say 2,500 square feet of like actual green wall. So it's, yeah, fairly large.
I'd love to see that. Sounds striking the way you're describing it.
Yeah.
All right, Casey, how about you?
So what makes me excited about what I do is seeing design sketch, going from like a conceptual level of design sketches and this layering of plants that you see in your mind actually come to fruition in projects that are built. We recently did ASLA, and I was actually walking the site earlier today, and it was just cool to see that vision being brought to life, and then how people are going to experience that site, and in their interpretation of what was thought up early on in those design sketches. So,
all right, let's get a little technical. Based on your expertise, talk to me about some design principles and things that we can share with the audience so that they can at least take away a few things they might not have heard before, or even if they've heard before, we haven't really taken it on through the expertise that we have here today. Any sort of design principles that you'd like to share, or lessons learned along the way regarding, you know, the topic?
I can take that one. So if you're familiar with well building, there is a principle called biofeeling design. And so bio means life, and philia means friendly feeling towards. So it's kind of the love of life. And that was one instance where, you know, you're starting to bring green and nature inside, as well as, you know, start to engage it to outside. So you kind of blur the lines between inside and outside. But it's shown that bringing greenery and bringing nature inside buildings actually helps with mental health and wellness. So there's return on investment for clients, or especially the things that you do, Eric, with the green walls and how those can give people a different sense when they enter into an interior space. I think that's one design principle that's kind of newer on the scene, and is becoming really prominent in some of the work that we're doing.
So on that note, regarding biophilia and biophilic design, obviously what you do, Eric, it's right on the core of some of those principles with providing, sort of nature elements, right, within the workspace or hospitality space or whatsoever. Yeah. Have you done anything that incorporates, Yijing's love for succulents, or any other kind of different beyond ivy? I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah. So ivy, we've just done, it's a small piece that we do, and for exterior projects. We've actually done some full succulent walls. So that's been fun. We did one in Venice Beach, California. That was actually an exterior fully succulent wall, which was cool. Inside we use predominantly tropical plants. So a lot of dark green stuff. And then I also use some mosses, but they're not alive. They're preserved. But yeah, no, and then I'll just echo what Casey said too. That was the perfect layout for me, because that's we were kind of early with well building, and I think a decade or two ago the focus was on making buildings energy efficient, and so you had like LEED standards, and right. Everybody went really, really far down the energy efficiency spectrum. But then if you look at, for instance, I'm looking out my window and I can see Bank of America Tower, and however many billions of dollars the tower's worth, if you add up kind of what they pay all the people that work in there, the people are much more valuable than the building. And so that's where we talk about well building, and we're like, hey, if you can make those people a little bit happier at work, a little bit less stressed, feeling a little bit better, and they're kind of what Casey alluded to too. There's a lot of research that shows, hey, give people some plants or access to natural light, or kind of some other biophilic design principles, and they'll be X% more productive, or they'll less absenteeism. And if you kind of figure out, hey, what's your return on whatever energy efficiency thing you did for LEED versus, hey, what's your return on make your people even 5% more productive, is a huge impact on their bottom line. And so that's where we've been kind of in that since early on. And it's kind of cool to see that it's like a little bit more mainstream now, and people are actually talking about it.
Yeah, I think Casey and I benefit from working in an environment that is well and was designed with well in mind. And I have to say, not as an architect, but as a employee, right? My experience of going to that space, it is drastically different, than going to our old office. So a lot has to do with it being a new space, but there was a lot of attention to care to make sure that those principles, were imbued into the design, and it does make a difference. So I think in your point in case regarding corporate headquarters or Bank of America, etc., you're absolutely right. I mean, it is not just saving power consumption and being gentle with Mother Earth, but it's also, the contribution to how do you make those people a little bit healthier. Even the fact that I think in well building, Casey, you can correct me if I'm mistaken, but the number of sick days gets reduced, efficiency gets improved, daylighting comes into play, movement, water. I mean, there's just beautiful things about well, that are great to have. I'm surprised we didn't push for that sooner, but at least we're the beneficiaries of that movement for at least a few more years in our career. Yijing, how about you?
So in terms of the design principles, what I was thinking is, since I'm a home gardener, I don't have like a bunch of principles to share, but there's actually one that I want to say is always be smart of the plant that you choose. So it's eventually the people who take care of all of the design and all of your plants at home. So just do your research before you put a plant into, I would say, either terrarium or in a pot is indoor, because you will have to take care of it after that. It might be a beautiful design at the beginning, but if you put drought tolerant plants and water-like plants together in a same pot, they won't like it. And then you will end up with an empty pot, or you will end up to destroy your design, which is not the thing that we would like. So being smart at the beginning and do your research before the design is the principle that I will always take on indoor plants.
Great. Hey, let me ask you a follow-up question to that. So I'm sure there are a few people on the call that have probably planted something succulent or not, and within a few months it probably had to have some sort of vacuum funeral on the pond, because the plant didn't survive. Any tips or resources or thing that you would recommend as a succulent expert, for people to go to? Maybe it's something online, but if somebody was to become a little bit more knowledgeable about taking care of their dear little green friends, do you have any suggestions as to where they should go?
Well, there's a lot of online sources. There's one video channel that I actually watch a lot. Her name is Garden Answer. She did not only deal with succulents, but also other garden plants. I watch her video a lot, and usually she will do topics like succulents, roses, and then I learn from her. And then if I find other issue that I have with succulents, I'll just Google. Google tells you lots of things. It answers most of the questions that you have. I will just Google. But there's actually one tip that I will give for succulents is keep watering schedule. Like, you should reduce watering for your succulents as a rule of thumb, because I've seen people water them succulents like how they water their other indoor plants, which is not good for succulents. Perfectly watered succulents can suffer from a lot of issue like root rotting and leaf rotting. So just give your succulents less water than you think. So if you want to, let's say you wake up in the morning and you want to water your succulents, I would say just wait for a day and do it. That's how I always tell myself. You're always giving your succulents more water than it needs. So that's a tip that I want to get.
I'm guilty as charged. Been there, done that. How about you guys? Do you have any, Eric or Casey, any resources that you go, particularly, when you're taking care of something that's, more residential or for your own personal enjoyment?
I would say for residential, I'm a big garden person. I have a raised planter in my backyard, and this year I've decided to take on growing things from seed. And I have this degree in horticulture, but I totally didn't even think about starting things from seed in water before you actually even put them into the ground. So you kind of let them germinate and get ready.
Sure.
But also just taking, starting from seed, seeing something grow and actually produce fruit, but understanding the proper spacing, understanding, what to expect, having that patience to let something grow before you transplant it too soon. I think are all just good tips. But I mean, the best thing you can do with anything that you're gonna put around your house is just get your hands dirty, just start, and see how it grows, see how it evolves, and also don't be afraid to split something. So I know that sounds weird, but things like hellebore, hostas, what else? Coral bells, they all have little babies, and you can separate them, and you don't have to go buy a bunch of plants. Your plants can produce plants for you. So it's just understanding, like Yijing said, of, do your research, do your homework. It makes a big difference.
That's great. Question for you. Have you worked with people that want to do a little green wall on their apartment or house? And do you have any tips? As you said, some of your components are pretty small. So I'm assuming people are using those for home. Any tips in terms of, how to even put one together? I mean, is it a way to hack, an ivy green wall and kind of, do it yourself?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to take business away from you, and just kind of sharing some information.
No, that's a good question. Yeah, no, we do have, some small scale stuff that we, sell to, just homeowners that put it up in their house. There's definitely, I'd say, a lot of our systems were designed and optimized for commercial use. So they're designed so that they go in an office or a hotel and it's very, very low maintenance, not a big operational headache. And so, for instance, they have like an automatic watering system and it's like easy to change things in and out. But then when you think about residential, they're very over-engineered for a residential application, which also over-engineered makes them fairly expensive. Whereas in a residential application, kind of to Casey's point, people that are putting plants in their house, a lot of times they love plants and they want to get their hands dirty and they want to be involved. And so having something like a wall that just waters itself and kind of takes care, like, I'm not saying it totally takes care of itself, but it removes a lot of like the analog components of like taking care of a plant and like kind of the point before of like, okay, don't water your succulents as much. And like, I think there's that fun game kind of and I've just started more since quarantine, having more plants in my house, but okay, what does this one need in terms of water and light and all that? And in a way, our wall systems almost make that boring because they take that away, which is great in a commercial environment. But then in your home, you're just like, oh, I kind of want to like have a little bit more control. But to your point, Daniel, there are some ways to like hack a green wall on your your wall at home fairly cheaply. And I usually tell people, if you start with like, you take a little plant pot that you get at the greenhouse, and when it stands upright, as it's supposed to, great. If you tilt that thing on a 45-degree angle and have the leaves come out of you, and so you're almost thinking about like a 45-degree angle shelf on your wall with those plant pots sticking out. I've seen people like hack together a green wall like that, and there's some trays that you can even order on Amazon to pretty cheaply like put up some plants that you buy in the greenhouse. So there are definitely, it's funny, we get a lot of inquiries for people like, oh, I want to put a green wall in my house. I'm like, if it were me, I'm like, there's other stuff on Amazon that's cheaper than our stuff. That's, much, easier to put up, and it's going to be, more enjoyable for you to, play with. And so, yeah.
So, yeah, you guys bring up an interesting point in that, part of the appeal of having a plant, well, it's indoor or outdoor, is that relationship that you develop with caring, for it. And then if you give it love, it gives you fruit. If it's a, fruit or a vegetable, if not, it gives you flowers, or it gives you aroma, right? They give you something back. And that's a sort of interesting symbiotic relationship that gets created. People call them pets, right? I mean, some of their plants, for them, they're like pets, they care of them, right? And they treat you back. So that's interesting. I hadn't considered, the fact that, we do develop this relationship with our plants. And when you go away on vacation, you come back and, if they're in trouble, you probably feel pretty bad. I know I do that when I plant something outside and it dies. I was like, man, that was a lot of work. That's what I want to learn, how to take care of them better, because it's a lot of work. One mistake that at least I've made, and hopefully that'll resonate with some of the audiences, when something dies over the winter, I would just remove something, right? Sometimes I get lazy and I don't, and then they just come right back. I mean, it's amazing how resilient, some of these plants are. They just keep coming back year after year. So I learned to be a little bit more patient. And I don't have a green thumb. It's not green yet, but maybe it's kind of brownish yellow. Even though I enjoy it, so don't have the skill you guys have. Quick question for you guys. If you were to ask each other a specific question based on your field of expertise, what would you ask each other? What would you want to know, from each other's expertise? Yijing, being succulent expert, Eric, you being on the green wall side of the equation, and Casey being the landscape licensed pro. No silence. Can't have silence.
I have a question. Eric, if you have a wall, say we're doing a design and we want to put a wall in, and are there any systems out there that are like movable, like puzzle pieces that can move and create like different patterns or, I don't know, because I know some of the green wall systems are like modular and that they have like their own, like this cell has this plant, this cell has this plant.
Mhm.
But have they done anything that is like kinetic or moves or?
So you're saying like
outside?
once it's on the wall, being able to just move it around at some point?
Yeah.
No, I can't. I honestly, I can't think of one that is, or, you know, if it is, I don't know about it yet. But it's, you know, sounds like an interesting kind of concept of something that could be kind of cool and make the wall a little bit more interactive and, you know, kind of have it morph and change over time.
Yeah, I guess that's the question. Is there an installation that you know of that would be interactive, or, you know, what is it? Have you gotten close to doing a project like that?
No, I can't think of anything that's like that. No, it's kind of cool though. I like the idea. Yeah.
So we talked about residential and in and out. You know, if there are any, you know, retail designers or retailers on the other side of the call, you know, do you have any advice, you know, for either a retailer that wants to add some green, you know, to his or her space, you know, his or her retail spaces, and or a interior designer that really is curious about, you know, where do you start? You know, what are the things that you need to consider? Light angles, you know, watering, you know, any conditions with HVAC systems and whether or not that could sort of, you know, make the plants behave one way or the other. Any specific tips or checklist that you would want to share with them? Anybody can answer.
Well, I would say, you know, a plant's alive, so it's going to need that connection. It's going to need a maintenance. Maintenance is going to be a big, we have a kind of a linear green chain in our office, and we have a maintenance contract that somebody comes in and waters them, you know, once or twice a week. So there are concerns on, you know, what is the maintenance cost of this plant coming in. Another thing, you know, you want viable light. You want to make sure that it's not, just like you said, not next to the HVAC. But also when you're thinking about these installations, think about multiple planes. So what Eric does, so vertical, but also horizontal, and how you can layer and texture and, you know, get different varieties. Plants morph and grow, and, you know, different textures and colors can complement each other, and they also have different bloom seasons. So when, you know, thinking about your composition of how it's going to be, they can work as dividers. They can create different spaces. So just kind of thinking outside of the box, and then also thinking about what this living system actually needs to survive, because nobody wants dead plants.
Right.
Yeah, I would just echo what Casey said. I think the biggest two things we run into with plants in general is lighting and maintenance, and so that's the big thing. Number one is and the lighting thing can be you know, as humans, it's very misleading because and I always kind of explain this to people that, hey, if you walk into a dark room, your eyes adjust and eventually you'll be able to see. Like, plants don't have that ability, and so they I always, to simplify it, just say they see kind of the absolute value of whatever the light is, right? So our eyes are going to adjust so that every room looks kind of bright to us. And if you look at what the, you know, design guidelines are for lighting in different spaces, you know, in an office, they'll say like, hey, 40 foot candles is, you know, enough light, and that looks like, you know, it'll illuminate your work surface and everything. But for a plant, so I encourage a lot of people, for $7 on Amazon Prime, you can get yourself a light meter and just check, you know, the light in your office versus what's outside. Even on, pick a really, really cloudy day, and you'll be like, wow, it looks really dark and gloomy outside. And that light reader will say, you know, whatever, 250, 500 plus foot candles. Like, on a dark day, it's way, 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 way brighter outside than it is in even a really bright office. And so that's the biggest thing where we see, you know, plants struggle indoors, is when I think that's the number one thing we have when people call us like, hey, this wall's not doing good. I'm like, okay, here, I'm going to overnight you a light meter. Tell me how many foot candles there are. And 99% of the time, that's the issue. You know, the other 1% of the time, it's When's the last time you had someone come maintain it? Like, maintain it. It's just, isn't it like a piece of furniture? It's just, we dropped it into the design just like we dropped in countertops and chairs and all that. I'm like, well, you know, it does need a little bit more. So those, yeah, those are the two big things.
Thanks for sharing. Yijing, how about you? Any thoughts?
Well, I don't have that much experience in this in the industry. All my experience are in home gardening, and I don't know.
That's all right. You're good. You're off the hook. Don't worry. It's all good. It's all good.
Thank you.
Eric, there is a question on the chat. Dina, if you don't mind, we can go ahead and open it up to the entire group. It's 6:15 right now, so we've got another 15 minutes. So if the audience wants to do a Q&A directly, you know, with the panelists, you know, now we could do that. I see Ahmed coming in and Corey. Naira is coming in. Slowly but surely.
Do you want me to answer that one that came in or no?
Yeah. While we're waiting for people to jump in, ask that question.
So I think that I saw the question pop up that said, is there watering in our system? And so I guess that's a yes and no answer. It just depends on the size and the type of wall. You know, on the no side, we do some, you know, artificial plant walls or moss walls that don't need any water. And then you get into the live plant systems where on a small scale, they can be hand watered. So, you know, some of those people that come in to maintain the plants, they'll have like basically a giant water tank on wheels. And there's a whole sub irrigation system in the wall. So they'll just like water it at one point in the top and it flows through the wall and waters all the plants. On the really, really large scale. So like, for example, I talked about that project in Columbus, or, you know, even some other ones that are here in Charlotte that are, you know, once they get kind of over, let's say a couple hundred square feet, we'll usually hook them into the plumbing of the building, and then there will be like an irrigation timer, and so it'll be automatically irrigated, and yeah, so it's kind of set it and forget it kind of thing.
Great, thanks. I see that Kiffin, you had another question for Eric. No, for Yijing actually. I'll read it out loud, or do you want to go ahead and ask it now, Kiffin?
Correct.
Go ahead.
Well, I know your specialty, Yijing, is the Korean succulents because they're so bright and colorful. And the ones in the US are more green. They're typically a range of greens. And I just didn't know if those are the only two varieties or if there's more that you know about.
So the fun fact is they are actually the same variety. And some of the succulent that I see here also they sell back in Korea. And then the main reason that the color is so different is because how they raise it. So in Korean, they actually raise all of their succulents in a controlled climate. So mostly in greenhouse. So they will be able to control how many lights they're getting a day, and then how many water they get within a month, and then what's the temperature inside of the greenhouse. So by controlling these three critical items around the succulents, they will like be able to make it the succulent, they call it stress. So think about it like a human being. When you are stressed, your face turns into red. Same for succulents. When they're in stress, by saying stress, I mean when you're not giving them enough water, when you are giving them extra lighting than they really need. And if you are giving them a high, like dramatically different temperature, let's say in the morning it's about 45 Fahrenheit, and at noon it's going to be 80 Fahrenheit. When you are giving it like dramatically temperature change, it's gonna push the color of the foliage to become pink, red, that vivid color. So the type of the succulent or the species of the succulent is actually the same. It's just about the way how they raise their succulent.
That's super interesting. I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
Color control your succulents by stressing them out. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's really good to know. Any other questions from those who have joined us? Silence. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
For Yijing, have you ever used an air plant?
Air plant? You mean those one that doesn't need soil or like a plant pot? You can just place them wherever you want them.
Yeah, you can place them, and then I think you have to water them. You just spray them, you spritz them. But
yeah, the other method, yes, I have air plant at my house, and the other method is you can soak them in the water for several minutes, and then you took them out and then face them upward side. So the water will dripping outside of that whole center of the plants. It won't stay there and keep it dry. Yeah, I have air plants.
That's cool.
That's cool. I have from our house plant a visit or event the other day. A few of us collected some of those. I opted to go air plant with everything because I didn't have much luck with my succulents the last time I did succulents. So hope I did a little bit better with the air plants. And yeah, you just miss them, and natural moisture from the air is what keeps them going.
A question for Casey, if I can ask another one.
Yeah, please, Kiffin, go ahead.
I don't want to take
absolutely.
Casey, I just wanted to know, our climate is pretty temperate in Charlotte, but are there certain plants that are go-to plants for you in this region that you plant outside?
Oh yeah.
That are easy to maintain? I
guess, well, here lately, Mexican feathergrass is just hot. That and pankium, gosh, I can't say it. But the ornamental grasses are something that I go to all the time, and especially I have this scheme. I like lavender, Mexican feathergrass, and allium bulbs together. So the combo. So here's the punch. The lavender has that nice purple. So do the allium bulbs. And the allium bulbs, if you put them inside the Mexican feathergrass, they can punch out through, and it just creates this like wonderland of like purple and green, and they contrast each other, and it's gorgeous. So that's kind of like a little plant palette that I go to pretty often. I love using weeping cherries. They have those nice pretty flowers. They look like fountains when they bloom. And then also ginkgos. I use ginkgos a lot. I've been using the lacebark elm a lot. That's in like bigger designs. As far as around like residential around my house, I love the combo of a fern, a hosta, and a hellebore right next to each other. So you've got this kind of woodland garden feel. I think that's really strong. But just like thinking about like the different textures and how, those are all shade loving plants, so they kind of work nice in this little composition together. But thinking about texture, thinking about color, thinking about, what are the shade and water requirements, and then, how you create those compositions is once you get like almost like a menu that you can start to work from, then it's kind of nice because you can come into a project and say, okay, this environment needs this, and I've got these ideas in my head. But what can I bring that's a little bit different? How can I remix it a little bit? But it's kind of nice to just start off a project with that little like menu of like, these are shade plants. This is more residential. This is, has that nice pop of color. So yeah.
Casey, I hear you describing that. And I'll tell you what popped in my mind, which it hasn't before, but it's like an orchestra director, in a component to sort of choreograph an orchestra, how all these potential different plant arrangements can get together to create the most visual, scented, colorful, dynamic stage. I mean, I'd never think of it that way, but that was, you describing it, I went like, man, it's really amazing that the amount of knowledge you gotta have in all those components to be able to integrate them well. It must be delightful and complicated all at once. So thanks. Anybody else has a question? Or hey, listen, if you've got a sick plant at home and you want to put it on video and ask our experts, what you got to do to make it feel better, bring it on.
Nothing. Normally just leave it alone.
Right. How about indoor fertilizers or things like that? I mean, Eric, Casey, and Yijing, do you need to be able to sort of condition the soil with, any sort of special treatment, tap water? What you'd recommend?
We use, I'll just throw in there that for a lot of our living wall projects, we use like a water soluble fertilizer, like called a 20-20-20 mix. And we just put a very, very little amount into the water. And it's just, I think in general, a good practice, especially, you know, and I think about it like, hey, plants out in nature, they can, you know, their roots can go deep, they can go wide, they can find what they need. Indoors, they're often confined in a, you know, some sort of pot, and depending, you know, that soil, the nutrients and, you know, minerals and stuff like that in the soil, just, they break down over time. And so I think, you know, especially for your, maybe the older plants that you have around that have maybe been in that soil for a long time, that soil may not have a lot of nutrients left. So if you're just adding water, yeah, it might be good just to, you know, put a little dash of some fertilizer in there just to give them a little extra.
That's great.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Yijing. No, Yijing, all you. Sorry.
I was just about to say, I don't like use a lot of fertilizer when I do indoor plants, but I do collect rainwater because I think the research tells me that rainwater has a lot of good mineral and the things that plants are like. So I just collect rainwater, and then whenever it rains, I will like rush to my plant room and then put all my succulent outside for just to soak every inch of rain that they can. I believe rain is the best fertilizer for succulents. For other indoor plants, I do hear that if you keep that plant in a pot for a long time, the soil pH will like slowly rise. So like what Eric said, it's if you have a plant in a pot for so long, it's either you change the soil or you put them outside for like let the rain wash away some of the like bad things from the pot. That's the method I use for indoor plants usually.
That's actually a really good tip, is like, you know, a lot of the plants that we have inside of our homes, they can be outside for the summer, especially in the Charlotte climate. So just like giving them a little bit of love by taking them outside and taking them on a walk. But I also learned this trick a couple months ago of taking ice cubes. And so like putting ice cubes on the top of your plant and letting it slowly water itself. And then I also, this is off of the fertilizer, but this is a Pinterest trick that I heard. You can take an empty wine bottle. If you're going on vacation, you fill up the empty wine bottle with water. You stick it upside down in the planter and let it self-water itself while you're out on vacation.
Yeah. I didn't have a green thumb. My mom did, and I saw her do that with 2 empty Coke bottles. You know, she would drill a little hole in the cap, put it upside down, and just let it drip. You know, summer long. So I am a little succulent plant myself, and it's almost 6:30, and I'm gonna need a little, you know, cocktail fertilizer here coming soon. So, you know, to wrap it up, and all of you can, you know, do the same if you are so inclined. Anything else you want to say to wrap it up, or any other questions from those on the audience before we go outside and get some rainwater? No? All right. Well, listen, Eric, Casey, and Yijing, I wanted to thank you so much. For those who were in the audience, I'm a rookie at this. This is our first, you know, sort of podcast panel. So sorry for the technical difficulties. Hopefully I didn't say anything inappropriate at the beginning, because I was like, what am I supposed to do? Then I get a text from Dina saying, you're live. So, but thank you so much for joining. I hope you learned something today that, you know, could help you with your indoor or outdoor plants. We are going to share a little bit of information to those who attended today. If you have any specific questions, you know, send it to us, and we'll route it back to our 3 panel experts. And again, just wanted to thank you so much for attending, and appreciate, you know, you being here with us today. Panelists, thank you so much for giving me your time. And, you know, Casey, I'll see you soon. Yijing and Eric, maybe with some rainwater sometime soon. All right. Or orange juice, Yijing, orange juice. I got you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, you guys. Really appreciate it. Have a great day. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.